Hi, it's Christina Jamison from the School of Home Ownership. And today we're doing a special podcast on teaching your kids about finances. I have a special guest with me today, Nina Fountain. Hi Nina, thank you for coming in.
Great to be here.
Now Nina has helped me with some podcasting and technical issues there. So you could talk about yourself quickly there, Nina, just give us an idea of some of the stuff that you do.
Oh yeah, thank you. I have two businesses. About 10 years ago, I set up a management consulting business, which is all about workplace strategy and change. And then my side hustle for the last 7 years has been styling women in corporate situations who want to be seen in their best light. So in terms of their personal styling, and with you, we looked at podcast styling so we could get a gorgeous impression online.
And the reason why I asked Nina to come on and be a special guest today is we started discussing ways that our families taught us about financing. So Nina, can you just tell us the interesting story you were telling me about how you were brought up to manage your finances?
Yeah, so it was really interesting to me to talk about budgeting with other people, I guess over my life, because I think, have a unique experience of budgeting in that when I was 14, my parents worked out how much it cost them to buy me clothes and shoes and to, in fact, I think it was 13 because I wasn't working at that time. Clothes and shoes, youth group and activities, and any extraneous things that they bought for school. That was where they were spending their money outside of, usual food and groceries and whatever. So they worked out how much all of that cost, and then they gave it to me in fortnightly portions, if you like. So split it up 26 times and gave it to me as a 26th of that every fortnight. And then it was up to me to manage that amount to cover those expenses. So I was now paying for them, and I had to, I had the decision, I guess, around would I spend extra on this or that element of the budget, and have less later on, or would I save it and have extra to play with if I knew something was coming up, for example. I think it was all of those really practical experiences over a couple of years that ended up being that helped me have that lived experience of either the money's run out or you've got extra. And that really teaches you the value of money, in my experience, and has become a great foundation for budgeting as an adult.
That's quite interesting. That's quite controversial. I mean, I grew up with probably slightly different. I think my mother gave us $150 for each season for clothes. So there was 3 girls with clothes, and you spent it, you lost it. And that was from quite a young age, actually. We were still, 8, 9, so we weren't even in high school or anything, but that's the way we were brought up. And at the age of 14, when we were working, that was our responsibility. So obviously we spent a lot more on clothes, but we spent it on our activities and what have you. And I guess I'm also interested to see, I didn't ask you this beforehand, but talk about, I guess, our partners. So if I give you the example of my husband, he was brought up where money just existed. So there was no budgeting. There wasn't a budget for our wedding. My mum said, hey, you've got $10,000 for your wedding, which is probably nothing to most people now, and you work out what you do with it. And Ken's family also contributed, but it was very different. I was budgeting, whereas Ken's parents were quite different with the budgeting. It's, oh no, that seems a bit too much. Or there was no, this is the money, this is how you're going to allocate it, and how much it'd be, what photographers and things. And Ken was going to a private school. His mum wasn't working. So, when you're talking about, hey, we're going down to the last dollar, there's a few levels that you could sort of work through. Whereas my dad was working shift work, my mum was working. So it was a very different time and very different attitude. And I think I gave the example where when Ken came home redundant and I had kids and was trying to work, my automatic, I guess, gear goes into budgeting. We don't know when the next paycheck's coming. We've got limited money. We've got to, make sure that we can budget it and make that money last. Whereas the first thing that Ken did is he went out and spent all this money, and he was not concerned that there won't be money tomorrow. It just always was, and it always will be. So it was taken, I guess, a bit for granted. And I think that's one of the issues that I'm finding is a lot of people in that, generation, in that sort of class, where it's just taken for granted. There's no working the money and making it work for you. It just is. So thank you. I don't know if it's controversial. Have you ever thought about your partner's sort of?
I've definitely noticed differences. I think we are on the whole mainly similar in that once the budget's set, we're quite good, both of us, at saying, okay, well, it's amount we've reached that amount. It's time to stop spending until a few days' time. For example, if the money runs out in a fortnight because you've splurged on something, or sometimes it just fritters away before you even realize it. So we're both quite good, I think, at sticking within our categories and going, okay, well, is there that much left in the category? No, there's not, so we won't spend it. And then I think we're also quite good at having the conversation. So we'll regularly look at it each month and just see where we're at. Are we still on track? Did we go over? Did we go under? And then at the same time, there are definitely differences in that I remember losing a pair of sandals, for example, when I was a kid, left them at the park. And my mum said, oh, they won't be there. They'll be gone by now. I said, please, can we go back and get them? Because I just want to see that they're there. And they were gone. Someone had taken them. But I knew that was the only pair of sandals I was going to get. And there were no more sandals for me that summer. That was it. I'd lost them. So that was how we grew up. And yeah, I remember the 80s, the huge interest rates that people were dealing with meant that that my parents had to look at ways they could scrimp and save in every area. And there were potentially some really big decisions that were going to be made, but somehow we managed to avoid them. But yeah, so I think I just remember money not necessarily flowing like water. It was more like something precious that you have to kind of manage. That was more the concept of money that I grew up with. And mental pictures of things can be very useful for conversations, I think, between partners. Like, what is does money flow like water? Does money grow on trees? Like, what's the analogy that we have around it? Because that can prompt conversations about, the differences in how people see it. And there's no right or wrong. It's really just understanding those differences helps to make a connection and to communicate about them. So I think, yeah, it's a powerful conversation.
And I just was interested in the words that you use, like budget. So what budget tools do you actually use?
We have an Excel spreadsheet.
Simple. Okay.
Just a spreadsheet. Yep.
That's how I did it. And I did it on my phone. There was budgeting, but there's so many fancy things at the moment. And I think, but there's other tools as well. I'd be curious to know if you use this on the phone. If you've got your bank, they actually categorize it for you. I don't know if you've seen that.
No.
And it saves you having to do that it gives you a right, depends if people are coming from, from zero, to doing a full budget. I think people might get scared if you're not used to a budget, but the bank sort of does something for you. You can at least start seeing where you're spending your money and where you can actually save.
Yeah. I think the other thing is to reward ourselves, because budgeting, if it feels like a discipline and it feels hard, then all of that feels kind of negative. And where's the reward? And if rewards are too far in the future, they don't really resonate. Like when you look at behavior change, you want to have reinforcements of that change being a positive thing, telling your whole nervous system, this is a good thing to be doing. So even finding ways to reward yourself is really, it's not necessary for someone who's already established the discipline, but for someone who is establishing that discipline around it, it's really, I think, really key to help it be a positive thing rather than being all bad.
So yes, I would be doing something like that. It's like if I spent less money on groceries, I'd go, yes, and I'd take that money and put it somewhere ready to spend on going out to a restaurant or I like.
Or even a portion of it, right? Like if you're wanting to save, then great, put most of it towards saving, but save a little bit for yourself for something fun. Yeah.
Yeah. So we portioned all the saving was separate, but this was a special. If I went under budget, it was like yes, and yes,
Yes.
and it's only and a lot of these people that I'd be working with is for first home buyers. So you just have to do it for a short while to get into the market, and then you could sort of relax a bit more. So Nina, if we were to get in contact with you for some podcasting tips and setups and styling, how do we get in contact with you?
Great. It's Nina@stylegorgeous.com. The website is stylegorgeous.com. And yeah, that would be the best way for people to reach me.
No worries. And head over to School of Home Ownership for some tips and hints. Thank you.